So, Ali, we got this concept of how to use the instrument. Can you give us the protocol now for a basic case and for an advanced case? Ultimately, how do you use, what is the
What's the protocol? What is the sequence of use? Yeah. So again, let's go back to what defines a basic ESX protocol or a basic canal to which you would apply the basic ESX protocol.
Okay.
It is a case or a canal in which a number 15 hand file goes to the apex easily. So you've opened up your canal. You got your original access based on our access course that we discussed those terms.
Okay.
Then you put a size 15 hand file in there. If it easily goes down to the apex and you measure your working length, you're dealing with a basic canal. You should apply this particular protocol to it. Now, what is the percentage of cases that are going to be basic? It goes back to what we mentioned a little bit earlier. It has to do with your practice composition. If you're doing mostly anterior and premolars, then a good 80 to maybe even 90% of your cases might be basic cases. So you will end up using 2 files only in these with this protocol. If the 15 has a hard time getting down to the apex, then that's an advanced case, and you need to do some more work before you actually try to apply the expediter. And we'll talk about that later on. But let's just talk about now the technique card and the way we use the basic ESX protocol. Now, it's as I said, everything starts with a size 15. So if 15 goes down to the apex, you got your channel, if you will, your path, your opening. You have a working length. Now you got your expediter file. The expediter file is a unique file. It's a 15 tip and an 05 taper. So when your 15 hand file is down to the apex, what does that mean? That means the tip of your expediter is not engaging, right? So you're basically creating a taper for the 15 hand file that has gone down there and created a 15 path. A 15 diameter path is now being expanded in width through the 1505 taper of the expediter. And what this expediter does for us, in the process of not only expanding the width, also it screens the canal for us. Based on the level of engagement that the expediter experiences as it's going down to the full working length, you determine which finishing file you should be using with this, for this particular canal. If the engagement is heavy and significant, right, where it takes more than 5 or 6, engagement for the expediter to get down to the apex, then you're talking about a size 25 finishing file. A 2504 ESX finishing file with a booster tip is your final finishing file.
Okay.
If you have moderate amount of engagement on your way down, you will end up having a medium finishing file, which is a size 3504 ESX finisher, and that also has a booster tip, as I mentioned, and that would be your final file, and then you'll match from that point on. You're off to the obturation. If you have minimal amount of engagement, in some of your anteriors, you're going to have, your expediter will go down to the apex in like 1 engagement. With just one little, right off the bat, it's down to the apex. In those cases, you're going to be using your 4504, and then you examine the flutes and see if there's still more tissue in there. Obviously 45 can't be the last file if you still have tissue in there. For that, we have an additional ESX finishing file, which is the extra large file, and it's a size 5504. So some of the central incisors and so on will end up being a 5504, but we want you to go in through the expediter through a 45 first, and then if you still see a lot of tissue on your flutes, then you have the option of going to a 55. And the ESX basic protocol is a simple protocol where you go from the hand file 1505 to the expediter based on the engagement. You have 3 finishing files that you can finish with, 25, 35, or 45. But it doesn't mean that you're locked. If you feel that it's a size 35 or a 25, you take a 25 and you see there's a lot of tissue left in there, and there's a lot of tissue in your flutes, because you always should examine the flute of a file as it comes out of the canal to see what's in it. If you still see a lot of live tissue, there's still a lot of bleeding going on, you're still inside the canal, but there's a lot of tissue tags that are causing the bleeding. I'm not telling you that, you're locked into a 2-file system. You can then go move on to a size 35. Right. It's not a problem, and it's always good to have some loose files around. These files come in individual packages, and they're all sterilized. They're pre-sterilized.
You got any instrument you need.
Yeah, to whatever you need, and you may even want to have some loose files around just in case that you need some larger sizes. But that's the basic essence of the basic ESX protocol, which follows this kind of a very straightforward thing for protocol, and it's available for you on a Technique card that the manufacturer makes. It's made by Brasser, and Brasser has these Technique cards that kind of describe what I just mentioned in terms of the protocol, what's best to use.
So let me historically give a little perspective to how this system differs from the endosequence system. Very briefly, endosequence system was developed with the concept of quantifying canals into small, medium, and large categories. What happened to allow us to go to the ESX system was that we had some advancements in file design.
Yeah, the booster tip specifically.
The booster tip more specifically. And what that did is it allowed us to not need as many instruments.
That's right. Cut down the number of files.
Yep, and it gave us the opportunity to take advantage of the guiding principle
Of the tip.
And so what we really have done here is we have created a system that is the next advancement
Yeah.
in terms of more efficient.
Yeah, more efficient and more adaptive based on the
more
system.
adaptable. Yeah.
And also, don't forget, there's two things. The booster tip helped us cut down on the number of files. The motion, the SSC motion, helped then reduce the torque on the given file.
Yeah.
So the combination of the booster tip and the SSC help us use less files and make the less files that we use safer in terms of the torque that they experience. Because if 5 of us were trying to lift a weight, and then suddenly that weight was distributed to 2 of us, each one of us are feeling a lot more torque.
Yeah.
So,
So
that's
the motion that you use with
SSC is a critical component of the system, and it should be implemented religiously.
Yeah.
So to leave it at that. Yeah. So let's come back and take a look at a little demo and use it using this basic protocol.